Welcome to Real Love Stories, episode number 1. I'm really excited to be announcing this and releasing this because I've been sitting on the idea for about a year and a half. I've been having a lot of people in my coaching practice just say that they haven't seen a good example of a healthy relationship, and whether that's because of their family or their community that they're in and there's no healthy examples, people very quickly can give up on love because they don't know what healthy looks like. And so I know a lot of couples that have been together for a really long time and super passionately in love. And I want to highlight those stories and interview those couples to see how they did it. What's their story like? Because it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but then give them an opportunity to pass along the wisdom on what helped them and how they were able to make it through. And hopefully with having a few episodes released, I think we'll begin to start to see some patterns of what people are saying so that we can really take that and implement it into our lives and never give up on love. So that is the concept of Real Love Stories. I've been sitting on the idea for a while. Like I said, I just haven't released it because I was wanting to make it all polished and perfect. But instead, I'm just kind of sitting on it going, you know what? I have a few episodes already filmed, and let me just put it out there. So you are listening to episode number 1 now. It's completely unedited, and it's the real raw conversation that we had. So let me know if this is helpful. Please DM me, because I do want to keep doing this, but I would love to hear insights that y'all have. If anybody knows any couples that think that they would be up for something like this to inspire other people, please connect me with them. And yeah, I feel like this could be a big thing because the world needs more of this right now, and the world needs more love right now, and the world needs more faith right now. And I think that this is what we can bring to people through this platform. So without further ado, this is Sheila and Nate Blue. I ran into them at a personal development event probably almost a decade ago, I think, when I was really young, and got to friends with their kids and stuff. But I always looked up to them, and we just stayed in touch over the years, and they continue to inspire me in so many ways. And so I'm not going to go into too many of the details, but you're about to hear the conversation that I had with them. Take some notes, actually sit and listen to what they're having to say. And this is a really potent conversation. So you're listening to Real Love Stories, episode number 1.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So how long have you guys been together / married?
We've been together 30 years, married 26 in September.
Amazing. So when did you know?
Funny, depends on who you know.
Yeah, I guess it really does depend on who you ask. But
so we met the beginning of our senior year of high school at our youth group at church.
Uh-huh.
I had been going to another church for years. We had just changed churches, my family. And that night that I was there was the first night I met Nate. He was a greeter at the door. I came home that night and told my sister, I'm going to marry that guy someday. That was me. And I was 15.
so, yeah, I had a girlfriend at the time. I was dating the youth pastor's sister-in-law.
Uh-huh.
And I, Joelle, her best friend, was just who introduced us. I mean, I just met everybody. I greeted everybody.
Yeah.
Bug.
Yeah, I didn't know her from Boo. So I just, it wasn't until almost towards the end of our senior year, that trip, that we really kind of got to know each other. And then, because she got herself into my circle of friends, and
I was pretty slick.
she stalked.
You were determined is what you were.
Right.
That's
That's the word. Stalking, determined. So
There wasn't the internet back then. It wasn't stalking.
Right.
yeah. So anyways, yeah. So thought she was cool and everything. We laughed. We had a good time.
We were friends
and then we were friends for a while first.
How long?
Gosh, I think that first year we really, like you said, that end of that senior year, we just kind of hit it off, joking, being friends, circle of friends, hanging out. We probably hung out as friends for about a year before he actually asked me out on a date.
Awesome. And so when was that for you, Nate, of there might be something here?
Well, that was probably, I don't know, maybe a little time later because,
It's a blur now.
because, yeah, it's kind of a blur, but I was such social bug, and I had other friends that were females that sometimes caught my interest, or maybe the timing wasn't right with them, and so I never really 100% dedicated myself to Sheila, but I wasn't cheating on her or nothing like that either. I just was like, we're dating, then I didn't really think of anything going anywhere long term yet. I wasn't thinking that far ahead.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, I don't know, about 21, right?
Oh yeah, you're about 21. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe about 2 years after that.
Mm-hmm.
And, because we kind of hung out and we dated a little bit, but yeah, it was about 2 years.
Kind of group-ish dating.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So.
We were young.
Yeah.
So because of that, like being so young, I mean, people change a lot, especially in their 20s. So what was that like for you guys in your relationship as,
We actually, going out, we liked each other. And because we were young, we actually got engaged when we were 19 and 21, and we broke it off because, like he said, I think it was the cold feet, and we were both young, and it was like, hey, this is forever, and, kind of a thing. And I'll say, I know he'd say this too, it was more him than me, but he wasn't sure it was the right decision. Maybe there was still somebody out there, was I the right one? And so we kind of went our separate ways, actually, for about a year, and then almost a year, I think, 10 months.
10 months.
Wow.
He came back, and like you said, there was some maturing that happened with both of us, and I wasn't easy on him. I didn't make it easy for him to come back.
He goes, no.
Nope.
No.
So there was that. And so I think there was, just being young and then having that time again apart, looking back, it was definitely a good thing because we were sure it's what we wanted to do.
Right.
So.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is because of our faith too, it's just, we met in our church youth group, and then we grew, but then even being young, there's you still have to kind of find yourself, when you're
do
young.
Life a little bit.
And and I did feel scared, wasn't sure. She wasn't rushing me or anything. I didn't feel rushed. Just wasn't sure if I was mentally ready for marriage. So I thought maybe there was somebody else out there. So I kind of dated another girl, and then, eventually, God tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You need to call Sheila now, tonight."
Wow.
So I didn't call her. She said I never would have heard from her again. She had a time frame in her mind there that.
Wow.
But yeah.
That was a God thing.
Was it like the deadline, like the last night?
Yeah, it was one of those things where, we, like I said, we'd had a relationship for a while. And so, when you break off a relationship, you go through that whole process of, I consider it like grieving, you kind of let go, all the stuff that goes with all that. And there comes that point where they're not part of your daily thought process anymore. And you kind of have finally gotten over it, let go, and moved on. And that's where I was.
So when he called you, what was going through your head?
I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, that was honestly what I thought. Like, man, I finally was like, moving in a forward, just like, okay, I gotten over it, moving on. I could see a life without him in it, that kind of a thing. And just process through having that relationship. And so, like I said, I didn't make it easy. I really told him I didn't really want to see him or talk to him because I'd finally just kind of gotten there, and I didn't really see any point of us talking again. But he begged. He did beg. And so I told him I'd give him lunch. I'd give him lunch in 30 minutes. That's what I gave him.
Wow.
So that was it.
So what was going through your head? And like, okay, I got 30 minutes. Like,
I have no idea. I don't remember.
That's the difference between men and women.
I guess I said the right thing, did the right thing, or acted the right way, looked her in the eye the right way for her to.
Well, you were just sincere, I feel, maybe.
I definitely, I was definitely honest with her. I know that, but I don't remember our conversation. I remember her disdain look, look of displeasure at times.
Go and prove it.
Yeah.
All right.
It really was a process. It was harder to regain her trust and her heart again than the first time, you know? So, yeah.
Because we had history and then we took time apart. So
Yeah.
coming back together, it was kind of like, okay, you know, why would it work now?
Right.
Or so,
Right.
yeah.
So why did it like go beyond the 30 minutes for you? Like what was
I think he was sincere, definitely sincere. And I guess he was so sincere and determined to be like, I'll prove to you that this isn't just, you know, hey, I tried something, it didn't work and I want to come back. Like, I guess that's the way I took it. Like, okay, you went out there and saw that you know, okay, I was young. So it's like, yeah, you know, there's nothing as good as me out there. So you came back. That was my thought.
Yeah.
So he did. And I was like, you know, why should I bother? Why, what could you possibly say or do to make me think that you're going to not want to do that again, or not think that, you know, and, you know, if I recall, it was like, you know, I'm in it for the long haul. I'll prove it to you. I'll show you. I really know. And he told me, he said he was praying and God told him, he said literally God like tapped him on the shoulder and was call Sheila right now. And I think for me, because we both had our faith. We did have, we were rooted in that. Yeah. And it wasn't just some, you know, Christianese or some language to get me back. He really was like, hey, you know, and I had said, okay, you know, if it's going to work, God, it's going to work. If not, not. And I was ready to go. So I thought, well, God tapped him on the shoulder, you know, and he was sincere and he was willing to be in it. You know, I wasn't going to make it easy, but if that was the case, then, you know, time would tell and he'd prove himself. So it was, you know, I'm a huge person on like forgiveness and loyalty and, you know, kind of like, you know, you've really got to do a lot for me to check you off my list, you know? So it was kind of like, you know, okay. And so it seemed sincere. So.
Wow. So
that distance between us too. She was living in,
yeah, we were living like
an hour and a half away from each other
at that point.
California at that point. So, and that was part of the challenge too, you know, with the initial breakup too. I had a whole new set of friends and community of people over here. And she was back home with our old group and still going to school and whatnot. And so it's a little bit of separation. And so, but it made it work.
Yeah. Well, so like that's
back over the hill.
You basically were doing long distance ish with also rebuilding trust at the same time. Which, wow. So like
not easy at all.
Yeah. So what was I mean, how long did that last? Who moved to who? Like what?
Yeah, about 2 years.
Probably almost 2 years. That was actually because I finished up. Wow. And he did a lot of driving over the hill, and I did the same thing. And just a lot of time on the phone. There was no cell phones back then. That's how old we are. But long conversations, you know, on the phone and letter writing and things like that. And honestly, and you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
determination.
Awesome. That's what it is.
Right.
Yeah, because I know that there are people out there, and I guess if you were to give some wisdom for anybody that's in a long distance relationship now, there's a lot of with that, especially around like trust. You don't know what the person's doing, and even though we have the internet and people are more connected, there's still that thing. So, I mean, just on this bit alone, like, what would you say for anybody who's kind of struggling with that?
What do you think?
Well, I think number one, I mean, again, for us, our faith is number one, you know, and then that's really a bond. So, so I think with trust, there has to be a foundation there. You know? And even if you're starting out, I think you have to really, I don't know, it's hard to, without God in our life, it's hard to imagine something different. And, you know, the trust and the bond that we had to develop, you know, but I don't know. I just think just being honest and being sincere and not giving any doubt to the other person is key, you know, even in a long distance.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do long distance, there's not a blanket answer, but I think it's important. We had a foundation before we went long distance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
we dated and we had been in the day to day. And so we knew each other. I think that's where it can get hard, because when you're not, like he said, he had a whole community and different group of friends than I did.
Yeah.
We didn't have trust from before. That would have been even harder to build, because you're not building it together first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It started out that way. I don't know that it would have had the same outcome, but we had already had, a friendship, a bond, and a relationship together for a time, like 2 years before that distance was there, and we had that trust built. So it's not easy to do, but it can be done for sure. But it's just, again, like you said, friendship, trust, all that good stuff. Just not giving anybody the doubt, any doubt.
Right. And like not letting those insecurities creep in.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So I know that we were talking a bit before we started recording about like we met each other like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's something like that. And I remember seeing you guys and it was just like, yeah, they're like still together. And it was almost in my mind like you were newlyweds, because you just energy,
Right.
it was so like fresh. And then it was like, oh yeah, we have kids. And and I was like, what?
Right.
So, like, and just to see you guys still in that space, like that's
Yeah, we're gonna be grandparents.
We just found out we're gonna be
really congratulations. Wow, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, what other what wisdom do you have to pass on to people around relationships? Just kind of if there would be any the key elements to your relationship on how you're able to keep the fire passion alive as well.
Right. Right. Communication is key. There was a point where we had a communication breakdown, and it really affected our marriage. But because she didn't open up fully, and I wasn't opening up, and it would really, created a distance. Even though we're living underneath the same roof and we had a family we were raising, it created a distance. And so that communication is just be honest. Sometimes we're going to say things that are brutally honest and might hurt the other person's feelings, but it's better to be honest than not to say anything at all.
I think as far as keeping that kind of fire, passion, fun alive, it's being intentional, number one, in your marriage. And that can get hard, especially, I know that roles have kind of changed some, but they're still out there, whether you're the main parent watching your children, whether it's the mom or the dad at home or whatever, that can get day to day, and the focus can change from this to that or whatever, career, anything. So I think just being intentional and making sure that you make time for that person, and remember that came before the other stuff, came before the kids, came before all the other things. That's number one. And then the other thing is, I think too, in all reality, being together 30 years, it's like, I think sometimes we get caught up in wanting that fire all the time, or that passion. And I hear, and I've told other women this, like, they say, go back to when you first started dating and remember what that was like. And it's kind of funny. I get the intention of that, but you can't, because you're different people. And I think the important thing is we can't, some of those things you don't go back to because you've changed. I think what's important to keep that fire alive is to remember that it's not always passionate. It's not always like, oh, amazing, hot love, all that. But you can look across the room and all you got to do is lock eyes. You don't even have to say words anymore. There's just some things that have so much more. It holds the same kind of intimacy as it did in the beginning with other things, physically, maybe other ways. So I think that's the key, is just like and that all boils down to communication too. We have our own language. Over the years, we've created our own language. And I know there's no other way, how twins have their own language or whatever. It's like, we look at each other and we don't even have to say anything.
Right,
There's jokes, there's laughs, there's looks, we know. And I think all of that to me is how you keep. That's a love and a language that we've built, and it will only ever be between the two of us on the face of this planet,
Right. Yeah.
So that's what keeps it going and alive.
That's special. I love that. And I know that you guys are also in business together too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're in year 4 of a company and a restaurant, and Nate, he's also he's been an EMS, fire department paramedic for 30 years. I thought that was cool when I met him. You know, guy in uniform. That's what did it. So, there was that. But yeah, so he does that, and on his off days, he's amazing, and he helps with the company, with our restaurant and cafe. So that's pretty cool too. So yeah.
How's that been in terms of the marriage of like going to that space and working together, and then also having the container of the relationship?
It's had some challenges, but we have a goal, and we keep that perspective, forefront. Mm-hmm. There's always some challenges because, I'm quote unquote a part-time employee, or a part-time business owner.
Yeah.
I have a full-time career, so and so she has a manager that kind of runs everything when she's not there or takes the role of the back. And so I have to, it's taken some time for me to find my role there. Even as a business owner, still take directions from a manager because she's there all the time.
Yeah.
So there was there was a challenge there and a balance, and for me to accept that. But we 100% solely support one another. And I do a lot of back end stuff.
He's awesome.
The maintenance, shopping.
The honey-do list.
I do a lot of stuff that people,
they don't
the grunt work, that we don't have to pay somebody to do, and I'm okay with that.
He's always been my biggest fan. He's amazing. He tells everybody, even on his ambulances, he'll talk about the pie we sell, and they'll come in and be like, hey, he picked me up on a call, a 911 call. Next thing you know, they're coming in for a pie. He's awesome. I think for us, the challenge in the marriage side of that has been turning off work when we're home. I think that's been it. So because I've pretty much built the company, it's mine, and he's, like I said, he's been a support system and awesome in that. It's me turning that off and us remembering, okay, it's not work 24/7, but it's coming home and being like, okay, like I said before, that intention, like, okay, it's date night. Or
so do you just like say it out loud, make sure we go to that place, and then
sometimes
we have to.
No work. Like, no work.
Because I'm a clock guy, so I'm at work at 6:00 and I'm there for 24 hours. And when I leave my work there, I don't bring home my days.
But as an entrepreneur,
as an entrepreneur, she's constant, and I'm not clocked into work. I really don't want to hear about it. Sometimes, not all the time. But So, but there's sometimes it's necessary to have conversations outside of work and outside of time, because she could just get so busy at work, or I could be busy, and there's no time to talk about it. So we have to talk about it in off hours. It's just hard for me, like when I have to be in a mood or mentally
ready. Yeah. So that's been the only challenge, I think. Too, the other good thing about it was we actually, prior to this, because he's amazing and worked hard, I was able to stay home and raise our sons and homeschool them. So I did that for almost 18 years. And I'm having to learn, like I had to turn off school mom, it was like teacher mom, be like just mom at the end of the day. So I've had to learn to do the same thing with business, and we've had to be like, so there's that marriage. I had to find that switch. And, that's one of those things, like you said, that we have to work on doing constantly. Cause as an entrepreneur, always something cooking, and you're always like the next, and it's hard not to be like, blah, 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 all the time. So I'm a verbal processor.
Yes, so, definitely.
Yeah.
There you go. So verbalizing and moving that space.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. You guys have gone through like a lot of shifts and transitions, which I think has built the connection that you guys have for each other. And I think just getting to know each other better as you grow, because it seems like that's what you guys have done really well. It's just continuing to get to know each other, because it's continuous growth. Like, I just want to share that reflection. That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
What have there been any other like things, big challenges popping up in your relationship or that pertaining to your relationship, whether it's, other people, especially in the beginning with why are you going back to the guy? I'm sure that was said, like navigating that type of stuff. Was there anything or?
Yeah, you mean marriage challenges? You mean that we've overcome?
Yeah, just.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, there's, we've had a few and almost to, and I'll let he can give details, but to the breaking point, I mean, to be honest, and I think that's the hard part where, and I am never going to put a blanket statement out there and say, oh, people today don't understand or they're not in it for the long haul. They are. I think one of the greatest lessons I've learned as a wife and as a spouse, just in general, and it could go for husbands or wives, I believe, is we've lost the art of fighting for your marriage when it's hard. When the worst part comes, not to walk away and go, hey, I don't deserve this. I deserve better. I've done that. But to fight for it when it looks like you should walk away because it doesn't look like it's serving you. And I know that kind of sounds contrary, but I think for me, we've had 2 instances just in some challenges in our marriage early on where we almost walked away. We almost called it quits, like divorce. And I want to say that because it's real, because people really do. And it's working through those things that build an even stronger, if you can, if both parties want to work at it, if both parties are willing and both parties are intentional and both parties are in, then you can. And I can honestly say, and I wouldn't wish any problems on anybody, but as you know, sometimes it's the struggles that build the muscles and build the strength, right? You work out, you know how that works. You got to break down the muscle, build it. But I think those are the things that have really caused us to go, okay, we're either in it to win it or we're not. And we're either going to work at it or we're not. And it really has been, we had the right foundation. Yeah. Even though the house crumbled a couple times, we had the foundation to build it back up. And I think that's key. And I say that to say, because it's not easy, because crap happens. I mean, bad stuff happens in marriage. That's life. A lot of stuff can happen. But does for better or worse really mean for better or for worse? And I think it's when a lot of people give up in the for worse and what their definition of for worse is. And so, I guess you have to decide what is that for you. But for us, what I thought was my for worse, we actually walked through it, overcame it, and here we are. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I'll tell you this, we are stronger. And it was the marriage I had always wanted prior, because we decided to be intentional. We decided to fight for it, and it was worth fighting for, not only for us. And this is where I see the benefit of that is the legacy that we get to leave, because both of us come from generations of marital strongholds and destruction, divorce, infidelity, generations, both of us, a lot of things. And we decided when that came into our life that we were going to be the generation that stopped it, that we were going to be the ones that said no more, and that we were going to break something so that our sons, we have 3 sons, had the ability to see a different legacy in front of them than what we had been given. And so fighting for it for that reason was everything for us. And we're on the other side of that years and years later. And now we're watching our sons get married and our sons have children and watching them not even have to walk through some of the things that we had to walk through. That's a gift in marriage. I mean, I can't even explain that, but it was worth the fight. It was worth what we went through, and we did it together. Sometimes the person you want to run to is the one who's hurting you. And that's not what, you don't hear that in marriage. Nobody ever told me that. Right. No one ever told me that part of the struggle. But it can also, at the end of the day, be the most beautiful thing you guys have ever walked through, because you did it together and there was nobody else around. I'll tell you what, sometimes when the doo-doo hits the fan, everybody leaves.
Yeah.
And
they abandon you.
They do, because they don't want to be in, they don't know which side to pick. They're all in trouble. But when your best friend you can fight through it together and you can work through it together, even though you did it to each other. I can't even explain something like that to you. It's worth fighting for. And there's beauty for ashes on the other side.
And, you know, we, like she said, there's generational things in our families and strongholds. And that's never an excuse, however, you know. But there are things deep rooted in our DNA from, you know, family generational mess, right? So, and we really didn't have the support of our parents when we got married. So,
because of the race thing?
The interracial things.
Yep.
And I'm biracial, so my parents are mixed. And so what was the
And they weren't supportive of it?
Not really. Not my dad, really.
That sounds crazy.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
that's a whole other show.
I'm sure.
So, but anyway, so we really didn't have we really bonded with each other. We had to early on. And then about 10 years into our marriage, there was a breakdown in our relationship where she had her group and she had her teaching the kids kids, and I was starting a new career, and the pulls of that just really broke us down. And I didn't communicate well. And she didn't communicate well. We did. And I ended up having an affair. And it was not intentional. It was nothing I really sought. Although you do kind of build up a relationship, but I didn't go into it knowing that I was going to do that, you know? It was a game or something like that, and then it happened. It was a breakdown. So, but when I was confronted with it, and I knew that, you know, I knew it was wrong before, but when I was confronted with it, I knew I had to confess. And I knew that it could ultimately dissolve our marriage. But through prayer and counseling, and again, coming together and fighting for something different, realizing that we both had a role in this, even though it was my fault in the actions, we both had a role, and we had to work at that. And
we had to fight for our marriage.
We had to fight. We fought hard, and probably that was one of the main reasons why we moved from California to Texas. My job was also dissolving my positions. My position as a paramedic at the fire department too. So that was kind of the same time. Now it was kind of just the extra added push to move us to Texas.
Fresh start.
A fresh start, right.
So we definitely overcome.
Yeah. But it was great because other than my uncle, we're not super close to him, other than his family. We didn't know anybody out here. So we made friends we made friends together. We had to rely on one another, and we had to be there for our sons. And
and again, we had that foundation, and I know that sounds maybe weird or hard. And again, I wouldn't wish on anybody, but there was that, we had a foundation, and it broke down. Communication broke down, things broke down. We found ourselves, I think like a lot of people, living married, single, because we both had so much busy going on. And when we restarted with a new fresh start out here, we decided what we weren't going to put back on our plate. You know what? Because we could, in hindsight, go, like he said, communicate and go, here's where we both broke down. And how do we not go back to that place? And how do we continue to stay intentional? And how do we, and so it was worth fighting for. It was definitely worth fighting for. And I think, again, I don't think everybody doesn't get to that point necessarily, but I think it's an easy, slippery slope to get there. And I think a lot of people, and they've seen, and unfortunately there's a lot of, blended families and things now, and that's not any blame or anything, but that's the norm. It kind of is, there's a lot of it, and it's accepted. And I know that there's always different circumstances. And so it doesn't matter what our background is, but we just decided we wanted to choose different because we both had that in our past. That was our story.
Right.
And I didn't want I didn't want my children to have another dad other than their dad, or live with, or that marriage. And I thought, was it worth it to me? You know, because that's what I had. And there was hurt in my life because of it. There was things in my life because of it. And I'm like, you know what, is it worth fighting for? Well, it was worth trying. And here's the question I asked myself. Have I done everything? Can I ask myself at the end of the day, have I done everything I could possibly do to make this work? If I really thought about it, I hadn't. When I was honest with myself, and so I'm like, okay, if I can do everything I could possibly think of, and then it still doesn't work, then I feel good about going, okay, this didn't work. But at that point, I hadn't done everything. And so that's where I was all in, going, okay, well, I guess I could do that. And I guess
the things you usually don't want to do, right?
Yeah, but it's hard to be honest with yourself, especially when you're, in hurt mode, or, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it. And again, just being intentional, really, that was a period of our life that actually reignited, hey, why were we in this to begin with? And that love. And again, wouldn't wish it, but sometimes when you go through the hardest things you can imagine, they're the most, I don't know what you call it, the strongest building blocks, really. Right. It just made us remember why we were together in the first place, why we fought for it in the first place, why we did it in the first place,
That's right.
So, and here we are, still here.
Yep.
Still fighting for it.
Absolutely incredible. I love it.
Right.
And it sounds like you all have had a lot of breaking of trust, and you're so trusting with each other now, which is amazing. What would go into rebuilding trust? Because that's something that I feel you guys are experienced at.
Well, again, as she said multiple times, is being intentional.
Okay. Yeah.
The other person's needs. And sometimes that's just listening, that's creating a date night, or, just being open in conversation and where you're at, maybe what you're reading, what you're learning. And she shares a lot of stuff with me about the stuff that she's learning and reading, and then I'll go back and I'll listen to it on audiobook, or I'm not a huge reader. But I take that, I'm listening to that way, because I want to be on the same page as where she's at, and she's, way beyond where I want to be in business, because she puts a lot of time and effort into it. And then I go back and I kind of just try to glean some nuggets, and just so I'm aware of what she's learning,
I think for me too, it's building back trust, whether it's honestly, it's forgiveness is the key. Forgiveness, real forgiveness. And real forgiveness, that was one thing, and not to dwell on that scenario, but how do we build trust from there to build back a marriage that is still going strong and what it is today, was to say that if we're going to do this, we're not going to bury the hatchet and leave the handle sticking out, like the Brooke song. We're going to bury it. And I'm not going to bring it up. It's not going to come up in an argument, not going to hold your past against you. And true forgiveness, it wasn't overnight. It's not easy, but what it looks like, it's to forgive someone, to bless them, and then to release them. Release them of the hold they had, because then I wouldn't be free if I didn't. And it's allowed me freedom to trust him. Those were one of the words I did say, actually, in coming back together after that. I said, just know that, I'm going to work on trusting you again, but it'll never be 100%. Just know that. Can't ever be 100%. And that's where God is good, and my faith, and that staying in the word and staying in prayer. And again, just forgiving and truly forgiving, like I've been forgiven, my belief, and releasing. God really taught me mercy and grace and forgiveness. And it was like, I forgave you and don't hold it against you. And if you're really in this and you're really saying this, what does that look like? How do you walk that out? And for me, this life lesson I've taken it into my business, and I've taken it into every single relationship. And what was interesting, I didn't realize at the time I was going to lose some key people in my life. that I had to forgive after all this, but I had learned how to. And it was huge. It was huge for me emotionally. It's helped me move forward in life, in success, in relationships, and in business. Had I not done that, had I not learned it in this marriage, it sounds weird, but the safety of a marriage situation, it wouldn't be something that I could learn and move forward with in every other area of my life. But that's key. Forgiveness is key, and being able to trust again. You can't trust if you can't forgive, and you can't rebuild. It's just not, it's not, I don't see how it's, honestly, because you're always going to have it in the back of your mind. And I never would have thought I could say that I could trust my husband 100% again, but I can say that. I can truly say, and he took actions to rebuild it. He took actions and said, I will do, I'll spend the rest of my life if I have to. And he has. He's been diligent about it in actively building trust. And it's not a thought anymore. It's not, and not having that little in the back of your head, that whole, I was raised with, it's not if, it's when they leave, and always being for it. That's what I was raised with. So to go into marriage with that, always expecting it, then when it breaks down, it was like, oh, there it is, but then how do you go from there and go, no, it doesn't have to be. No, it doesn't. You don't have, how can I fully trust? And I think a lot of people come to the table with that. Like you say, why do they think marriage won't work? Because they haven't seen it work, because somebody told them it won't, because the trust, their example of it wasn't there, or nobody ever told them the truth. And the truth is, sometimes it stinks. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes you want to walk away. Sometimes you don't like the person, but there's a different kind of love that keeps you there. And I think those are the things that nobody teaches us. What does that look like tangibly in life? Does that make sense? We want this, picture euphoria, like it's always awesome and we're always being treated with this amazing, awesome love. But then, like I said, there's this deeper love that goes, and you can't explain it. It's like that, there's a song by Need to Breathe. What is that? The Stones Over Rushing Water. Yeah. I love that song. It's like, it's what's underneath that makes those stones smooth. The water just rushing. You don't see what's gone on for years and years and years and years to make those stones smooth, make them the way they are. And that's the kind of love that you have when you go through the good and the bad. It's sticking it out. It sounds weird, but stick out the bad stuff. You'd be surprised what's on the other side. The good stuff that you think you want in marriage is on the other side of the bad stuff sometimes. Sense.
Yeah.
But imagine if you ask the people who've been married even longer than us, the 50 years, the 60, they'd probably tell you similar, I would imagine. I'm looking forward to being those people that are there, he's telling you how it is.
Right. Well, I appreciate you guys keeping it real with this, and like just your story, your love, like it's all phenomenal, really. And I'm just so honored that you guys were here to share, and just thank you. Seriously. I know you're about to be grandparents. What else is new? What else is exciting?
Oh my gosh, I think that's the biggest bit of news.
Yeah, that's a big, because she's just found out. She just got an ultrasound. So we found out, 3 weeks ago?
I think so. Yeah.
About 3 weeks ago, and then she got her ultrasound this week, and so we're coming into a new stage of our life. So our youngest son just graduated high school. So we have one's in the military. He's overseas. One's a couple hours away, married and expecting his first child, and then we have our youngest, who's in and out of the house because of work and school, started college and whatnot. So we're coming into a different season of life where we are, not that we never stopped dating, but we're dating again, and we're really
it's all about us.
It's about us, yeah. We don't have to please anybody anymore.
Yeah.
So, it's fun, and
it's different.
It's different. We're looking forward to what that brings us, and grandparents.
Yeah.
I'm gonna spoil the heck out of it.
Yeah. I think that's the newest thing. Like we said, in that dating again, it's like, like I said earlier, like, remember how it was when you were young and dating? It's like, but we're different people now. So now we're even like going, what do we want to do? Like, what are our interests together now? Because we've changed over time, the things that we like. So it's almost like, hey, if we were to meet today, you know, at our age, what would we be interested in? What would we go do together? So it's kind of fun. We're sort of learning ourselves as a couple again,
Right.
in a different way. So that part's making it fun between that and the business. And actually that's something that's been really cool, to be honest. That's something that's exciting for us. I started out with that, you know, and Nate's been amazing. One of the other challenges that we walked through was me losing my brother in Afghanistan. And just, it was a huge gap for me in life and the grief that I walked through and some things. And God gave me the gift of finding a way to grieve and do something with my grief. And I started out selling some frozen pies in a farmer's market. It was my brother's favorite pie, is what it was, a chicken pot pie. And wanting to give the money back to veterans and widows and orphans. Veterans is why I did it, you know, to feel like I was doing something in the name of my brother. And starting out with that, had no idea a year later it would turn into a business and a restaurant, a cafe. And here we are 3 years into a restaurant. And so there's that, and it's phenomenal. We've got, you know, 13 employees, and there's this whole business, and we've grown that over these last 4 years, and it's kind of cool and exciting. And there's some days that, while it's challenging and frustrating, like all business, it can be like, we sit back and look at it and looking at the numbers, and just through all the COVID and everything, we never had to close our doors. We have a fantastic community. We got to people kept their jobs, and we just got to look at each other at the end of the day, where, you know, we met as these two kids in high school, and we're like, we're doing this. Like, we did this. These were things on our bucket list. Yeah, the whole adulting. We're like, not only did we do that, we're here. We have 3 grown sons, and we have a grandkid. When did that happen? We're still 25. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, that part to me is like, wow, you look on the other side of that, and you're like, how did this whole world like get built when you think you're just not getting anywhere? You look back like that. We look at each other and we're like,
Get here.
yeah, and we drive someday and we're like, we did this, you know. And it's like, it's so cool because we stuck it out. We did it, and we did it together. And at the end of the day, you know, like I said, we met when we were 15 and 17. I remember his 18th surprise birthday party. That's how far back.
They know she was there.
Wow.
And it was like, yeah, he's dating someone. But it was like, you know, you look at that, and I see where we are today, and you look at that kind of perspective, and it's like, man, it's cool. You know, I'll write a book someday with all the details, but it's super cool. Sometimes it brings you to tears, but it's exciting that we look at each other at the end of the day and we go, we did this together, the two of us.
Yeah, and in business is really cool because now we have the opportunity to speak wisdom and life into our young employees, and it's fun. You know, to see there's a lot of them are like our own kids almost. You know, like, are they really listening? You know, and then they'll come back days later and say something that, you know, confirms what we had told them, you know, just recently, you know. So that's really cool. That's nice. You know, be able to making a positive impact in these young people in that way. You know?
I love that so much. You guys are phenomenal. Like, role model for sure. And just like you said, just little kids still doing it. Like, what? I love that.
We look at each other and we still see. I was wondering, you know those commercials, you see the sweetest old people, like 80s or 90s, they look at each other, and then you'll see that other picture when they were young. I get that now. Like, I look at him and I still see the kid I fell in love with. The young, you know, you really do see the young person you fell in love with. No matter how old we get and our bodies change and everything else, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's like, it's just us.
That's right. Yeah. And we're trying to, we try to keep it young and fresh and stuff because we are in a different season of our life. Mm-hmm. So we have to be intentional about some things, you know, and we got to worry about our health too and stuff like that. Things are starting to break down.
Our conversations are that sometimes. This hurts.
Yeah. I want to get out of bed, my back. So, yeah.
It's fun growing all together.
It is. To look back on what we've come through. Mm-hmm. So,
definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, there's some hills and valleys in there, but to be on this plateau it's fun. It's nice.
I can see. Thank you guys for keeping it real with me and just being yourselves. And thank you for being loving and doing you, honestly. I really appreciate it. Again, thank you for taking time. And yeah, just keep it up. I'd love to stay in the loop.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for considering us.
Yeah, you do too. Yes. And I just love that you even, it was cool when you asked us because like you said, you know, as a relationship coach, you're telling people what it's like, hey, maybe I don't have 20 years in or 30 years in with a person, but you seek it out. I think that's one thing, even when we met all those years ago when you were young, you did things, you were so determined in your intentions and you knew what you wanted and the no compromise. And I saw that strength in you and that determination. And it was, we just knew, we always talked, even that you left such an impression on our whole family. It was, when you left, we were like, man, that kid's going to do stuff.
Yeah.
It was really cool. So to be here and have you asking us these questions and talking to us, it's pretty cool.
It's cool.
Yeah. It's awesome. And to see who you've become and what you've done in the lives that you're changing in the season you're in is pretty cool too. And to get to be a part of that's on our list of cool things we're getting to do together.
Right.
Exactly. I love it. Thank you for that reflection too. Seriously, I really appreciate it. You guys rock. I love you. Thank you. And we'll chat soon.
All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.